So here's a very wild concept. When I'm looking to decide who I'm going to vote for, whether it's a presidential election, a Senate, a congressional, a local election, I want to actually hear about policies that are going to impact my life and my family. As many of you know, I'm a new dad. And so an issue that's important to me, like for millions of Americans, is the cost of childcare. It's healthcare. I want to know what politicians are doing. And perhaps that's not the sexiest issue out there that's being talked about, but it's the type of issues that freaking matter. And it's what we should be talking about. So when I see town halls and people are being asked questions, what's your plan for childcare? I'm listening because that's going to impact me, and I'm sure it's going to impact you. Let me remind you, when Donald Trump recently had this event or town hall, he was asked a very basic question about how he would be making childcare more affordable. Let me show you his response. Let's play it.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest.
Okay, I have no clue what the hell he just said right there. And it's a serious issue because I want to hear detailed policy. Let me bring in Dr. Harvey Karp. You probably all know Dr. Karp. If you're like me, you've got the book. Before my wife even knew that I was friends with Dr. Karp, she goes, I got the best baby book out there, The Happiest Baby. I go, I know Dr. Karp. He sponsors the MeidasTouch podcast, the Snoo. That's one of the products from the Happiest Baby company. It's been a lifesaver for me. The white noise device that you guys make, a lifesaver for me as well with my baby. So just thank you for helping me sleep and do these YouTube videos. How would you answer that? What if you were advising? I don't care about political parties right now for this. How big of an issue is this? What would your advice be to politicians who are running on this issue?
Thanks, Ben. It's a big issue, and it's a big issue because it used to be, 20, 22-year-old women were going out and having babies. Now it's 32, 34-year-old women. And that means that most of them are in the workplace. They have responsible jobs, and we need to help them stay in the workplace. People need the money also to raise their families. And so most countries have developed these universal childcare, universal preschool, and ways of supporting families because people don't have the extended family that they used to have. And so they have this difficult decision. Am I going to leave work and take care of my baby, or can I find affordable childcare? Because much of the childcare that is in existence right now costs as much as your salary. So you're going to work and then you're paying for it for someone else to hold your child. The other thing that we see in terms of childcare is that, interestingly, around the world, the birth rates are dropping. And there are a lot of reasons for that. But one of the reasons is it's expensive taking care of little kids, and people have to stay in their jobs. And so what we're seeing is that the the places that are most successful at encouraging birth rates, and in the US, by the way, the birth rates dropped, I think, like 30% over the last 20 years. That becomes serious. Then you don't have people to go into the military. You don't have people to collect, your do your public service for the cities. You don't have people to staff your factories. You just don't have people to pay your tax base. So we have to encourage people to have babies. That, by the way, is very bipartisan. Democrats and Republicans both understand the importance of that. And so to be able to do all of that, you have to build a basis of having free or affordable, but accessible childcare in every location. Just like we did public schools, we have to bring that back one level. And one more thing that we've learned is that when you have preschool, when children have the access to preschools, it's the best, much better investment than investing in college or graduate school level education, because you get, I think it's $8 for every $1 that's invested in preschool in terms of tax bases later on, reduction of costs from people getting jobs and not, ending up going into crime, being able to keep their jobs and be having really a good contribution to the communities. So A, it's a good investment. B, it's a necessary investment that we're going to be having to do, whether you like it or not, whether you think women should stay home and raise their children. It's not happening anymore. Women are in the workplace, and we need to be able to support those families.
It's why when someone's running for the highest office of this nation, and perhaps even not the highest office, the way you just responded to that question was detailed. You showed how it was going to actually be beneficial to our economy and be beneficial to families. And, one of the things that I'm at least looking for in candidates is to articulate that substance, that's real. I want to ask you about this. Vice President Kamala Harris talks about the sandwich generation, people who are still having to now help their parents or perhaps even their grandparents. So they're spending lots of time and money on that care, and at the same time expected to or are raising families themselves and has to pay for all of that type of care. And then, of course, you layer on top of that the affordability of housing and all of these issues. This framing of the sandwich generation, are you seeing that as one of the kind of fundamental kind of issues, a clog, if you will, on the pipes of our economy? And if there's a solution, you could really release a lot of things that could be beneficial from the company from a crude perspective as well.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of families are struggling with that, and a lot of corporations are A, helping young families, and B, there's a lot of investment in elder care because people are living longer, and so they are needing more help. I'm more a specialist in the baby side of things, and so I would just say that now if you have a nanny, you're pretty well off, right? It's pretty cush if you got a nanny to help you out. But 100 years ago, you had 5 nannies. You had your grandma, your aunt, your older sister. You had a lot of help with taking care of a baby. Now you've got a job or maybe 2 jobs, and you're taking care of your kids. It's really burdensome, and it's dangerous also. In other words, parents are exhausted, and when you're exhausted, that can lead to all sorts of bad things. It leads to unsafe sleeping practices with your babies. And the latest CDC data, 3,700 babies died in 2022 in their sleep, either in bed with their parents or when they rolled to an unsafe position. That's kind of why we developed Snoo to begin with, to keep babies safely on the back. And Snoo is the first and only FDA de novo authorized device for keeping babies on the back, keeping them sleeping safely. But 3,700 babies, just imagine, that's the number of Americans who died in 9/11, except it happens every single year for babies. We have to do more to stop that. And again, that's a big goal of what we're trying to do with Happiest Baby and Snoo. But the other thing is about postpartum depression, which is enormous. It's almost 1 million parents, mostly women, but men as well, who develop postpartum depression and anxiety every year. And what we need to do to reduce both the sleep deaths of babies and the postpartum depression of mothers is to give women and men childcare support. And what Snoo does, Snoo is for about $5 a day for a friggin' coffee, like a Starbucks coffee. You can have a 24-hour caregiver that you get an hour or two more sleep. It calms the baby's crying, it sleep trains the baby, and it keeps the baby safely on the back. And now we're actually even doing studies looking at brain development of children to see if we're able to enhance brain development by giving babies a rich environment of rhythmic holding and rocking. So all sorts of good stuff that we can do to help that sandwich generation, because they need that help. I'll say just one last thing, Ben, which is that tens of thousands of parents now get a free Snoo rental from their employer. Big companies like Chase Bank and Dunkin' Donuts and Snapchat and Under Armour give this as their number one benefit, because it makes people feel rested and grateful and loyal, and it also improves productivity and reduces errors and accidents and things like that.
Here's the thing. You just outlined a number of problems, some fatal and horrific, and others deeply tragic that can be fatal, whether it's postpartum depression in women, and also you identify men, also the rate of deaths that can be preventable with the right type of care. I mean, that statistic, 3,700 deaths, that means that there are families across the country that potentially have an avoidable situation if there's intervention from the government can be an assistance in that. You've identified how that's could go down, and there needs to be action. Like, these are problems exist in life, and guess what? They can actually be solved if you follow science and you address them from a serious perspective. I'll show you this clip right here. Here's what Governor Walz said in response to that whatever you want to call that first question that I showed at the beginning. Here, let me show you what Governor Walz said. Play this clip.
Did you hear? He's got a plan on childcare costs that no one in the world understood a damn word about it. Not one thing.
Let me give you the alternative flip side here, Doc. Here are some of the plans that at least I've heard articulated from Vice President Kamala Harris. And, let me know if you think this package deal is something that's helpful, if you would add things to it. Number one, expanding the child tax credit, which, I think she acknowledges is a step, but tax credits enough, we've seen internationally, are never by itself usually just enough. Paid family leave, universal preschool, and then other efforts by the government in early intervention. So what would you add to that list right now? Let's just say that I was running for president, which I'm not, nor do I have every intention to ever in the future. And I said, Doc, I'm running. I'm going to be asked that question that you heard at the beginning. What would be my 5 to 10 bullet points, or more or less, that you say I got to hit if I'm answering that question and deliver on?
Well, that's a really good start. What they're talking about. There are a bunch of other things that really support all of that. And basically, you're building this safety net. We've got a safety net for the elderly. This is a safety net for the young families, where you have doula services, where these are people, or home visiting nurse programs. And there are many of those that are subsidized by the federal government already, but making them universally available. So people go into the home and they help you in your home, take care of your baby, learn what to do, because parents today don't have a lot of experience taking care of babies. Many of them, it's the first time they have a baby, it's the first time they've ever touched a baby in their lives. Getting a Snoo, we're now started programs with Medicaid programs, so that we're getting Snoo not just into the hands of working folk, but also, people with jobs from big companies, but people who are on Medicaid, getting support from the government. We're working hard to get into the military. We've subsidized 20,000 active duty military with Snoo to help show our gratitude to people who are doing service for us every day. In addition to establish more childcare centers at your place of work or near your place of work when that's possible, because that way you can do your work, go visit your kid at lunchtime and come back to work. And really increase the ability of people to have their well baby checkups, even have vans that travel through communities that are able to deliver healthcare, bring it to the people instead of making people have to come to the clinics. I think all of those are ways to try to help support. And the thing about the beauty about this is that $1 invested in these things gives you multiple dollars in return. Our children are our biggest treasure. They are, like we like to say, children are 25% of the population, but they're 100% of the future. And so investing in young families and children is the smartest way for us to take our extra dollars and build security and stability in our country.
So people often want to know sometimes, well, Ben, how do you select your sponsors? And here's the thing. It is an honor that we could have a pro-democracy media company the way we do, but it's so important that we have sponsors like you and Snoo, because these are products I believe in and I use. Every day my baby's in the Snoo. We use the white noise device. We use the Swaddle products. It's something that's made my life personally easier. And then as you and I have talked over the years, to get to learn about these statistics, I mean, you're the foremost doctor in this area. You've studied this, you've written countless papers on it. And I think it's important that, our politicians take note of all of these issues. These are issues that save lives. These are issues that save money. These are issues that save the country. So thanks for joining us. I hope you will join us again. And I'm sure everyone who's read your book is like, thanks for having Dr. Karp on. That's how we trained our baby. So thanks for joining us, Doctor.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million subscribers. And by the way, you got to check out the Snoo as well. I use it every night. You may have even heard my little daughter Jimena in the background as an added bonus. Thanks to everybody for watching.
Real quick, Meta just changed their algorithm to suppress political content. Please follow our Instagram @MeidasTouch right now as we head towards 400,000 followers so you don't miss a beat.